Well, there's 3 games left this season, and I know at least one team is good. I think. Grossi, Posse, Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't, I do Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. No, seriously, I think by the Super Bowl, we'll have an idea of who's good. Grossi. And today, ladies and gentlemen, this is the final power rankings of the playoffs. We'll probably do a power rankings post Super Bowl. We'll do one after free agency and the draft. But yeah, this is the last one of the season because after next Sunday, all we have left is the Super Bowl, and it's just 2 teams, so that would be kind of a useless video. But maybe all these videos are useless. Maybe all these subjective power rankings where everyone is just voicing their opinion. It's just the same muffled garbage that we've been getting year after year. This is just my opinion, but what makes me an expert? Nothing. I'm a man sitting in pajamas in his basement. I don't know anything. I just watch a lot of football. I try to keep my pulse on each fan base to see what's going on, but I mean, look at my records in the playoffs. I've gone 500 the past 2 weeks, literally dead even. I'm basically the Jeff Fisher of sports creators. But hey, at least he was a head coach. But yeah, so this is the final power rankings video of this season, and my mental stability is totally fine. I'm totally not burnt out at all. And so we will be ranking the final 4 teams heading into Championship Sunday. But before that, yeah, we're like 12,000 subscribers away from 1 million. So yeah, if you don't mind subscribing, There's no sponsors on this channel, but you have to listen to me. So I understand why you don't subscribe because of this, but feel free to do so. Starting off with number 4, you got the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, they won their first playoff game in 10 years this past Saturday, and then immediately learned that Bo Nix was going to be out for the rest of the season.
Where are you?
I'm in a glass case of emotion. Yeah, that was, holy God. Broncos fans got maybe 10 minutes of joy in between winning that game against the Buffalo Bills and then learning that their starting quarterback is not going to be there for Championship Sunday. And even if they win, he ain't going to be there for the Super Bowl, which honestly is heartbreaking on numerous levels. One, I feel terrible for Bo Nix, right? First of all, to win his first playoff game in overtime, to knock off Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, and now to learn that you're not going to be able to be there for your team for Championship Sunday, yeah, that's brutal. On top of that, that was a really damn good game on Saturday. We saw a really good defense in the Denver Broncos. They forced a whole bunch of turnovers. Josh Allen had himself a rough day. But the fact that it even went into overtime, one, it showed that the Broncos can hang with a great offense like the Buffalo Bills because they have that number 1 rushing attack, and Josh Allen is Josh Allen. But of course, the difference maker was the turnovers. And so why are the Broncos at number 4 right now? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, Jarrett Stidham. I like you, Jarrett Stidham. He's never started in a playoff game before. And so losing Bo Nix, that is going to be a problem. But you look at the Broncos' second half offense, and it really was not great. They were able to score 3 points off a turnover early, and then the only other score they had before overtime was that phenomenal Bo Nix throw to Marvin Mims for that touchdown. And listen, that was probably one of the best throws I've ever seen Bo Nix make. And just to not even have him as a factor in the AFC Championship game, yeah, that's a bit problematic. The other thing that concerns me about the Broncos is that they went up against one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and yet Bo Nix was their leading rusher with 29 yards. I don't know if it's a mix of Sean Payton just not wanting to run the ball or the fact that they're just not able because RJ Harvey, who is very good in space, they're just not getting a whole lot out of him. But then again, they didn't even try a whole bunch to run the ball on Buffalo. So yeah, it just feels like you're going to need something from this offense in the AFC Championship game You're going up against a good defense in the Patriots. Of course, they got a whole bunch of turnovers against the Texans. We'll talk about that. But it just feels like they are very one-dimensional, even when Bo Nix is on the field. There was a time for a few weeks where RJ Harvey was running well, of course, when they had J.K. Dobbins. And speaking of J.K. Dobbins, his return window is now open. So if he is able to play on Sunday, that would be an enormous boost for this Broncos offense because they were running the ball the most effective when they had J.K. Dobbins on the field. However, while, again, it's deflating that Bo Nix is not going to be there, what makes this game interesting is that Broncos defense. They're able to get after the quarterback. Drake May just got sacked 5 times once again going up against the Texans, so that O-line is definitely a little shaky. My concern is for the Broncos, though, not having Bo Nix, not really having an established run game, and they are just not going to be able to put up enough points going up against the Patriots. However, I do think it's going to still be a pretty close game. The Broncos, while things are definitely not ideal, at least they are playing at home. But yeah, as of right now, because they don't have their starting quarterback, it's really hard to rank them any higher. So because of that, they're coming in at number 4. Number 3, you got the LA Rams. The Rams. Has the blood pressure come down yet, LA? Holy cow, that was definitely a game. The Rams, the only road team to win this past weekend, they were able to go into Chicago, and even though that game went into overtime, they were able to get a game-winning field goal to advance to the NFC Championship game. But before that, that throw from Caleb Williams had every Rams fan in shock.
In all kinds of trouble, put it up for grabs to the end zone. He got it!
How?
Seriously, that was just insanity. But let's talk about the Rams. The Rams are a very interesting team, and I want to give them a lot of credit because it does seem like a lot of the credit is going to the Bears, even though they lost that football game. And the Rams, they definitely deserve credit for being the only road team victor. On top of that, going into a cold environment, you heard all about it last week. And Stafford, while he wasn't incredible, right, there were some clutch plays that he made that allowed his team to drive downfield and ultimately win that football game. But it really came from the defense forcing those turnovers that made the difference there, even though some of them were thrown right to the defender. But yeah, the Rams secondary, they definitely did their job, except for that throw to Cole Kmet that resulted in a touchdown, but that's neither here nor there. What's weird about the Rams is it just seems like they're not putting together their best football. And it's kind of felt that way ever since they lost to the Seahawks after blowing a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter and ultimately losing that game in overtime. It just feels like they haven't been the same squad. They lost to the Falcons, and while they were able to beat up the Cardinals in week 18, that game against the Panthers in the wild card, that came down to the very end, and this one went into overtime. And it just feels like the Rams are not taking advantage of their opponent's weaknesses. For example, let's talk about that Panthers game. They only got 2 sacks on Bryce Young, and that offensive line was pretty damn beat up beforehand, but was even more beat up in that game. On top of that, they didn't register a single sack against Caleb Williams, and I know that they have a better offensive line. However, their offense really didn't score a ton of points, considering they're the number 1 rated offense coming out of the regular season, and the Bears, they allowed the most points out of any defense in the playoffs. And it just feels like that 10-10 score, it was pretty damn stagnant for a while. Again, the most important thing is that they were able to get the win, but it's just a bit concerning because it doesn't seem like they're playing their best football. However, now they're going to Seattle for round 3, and they have a chance to shut everybody up. I do think the Rams are going to perform better because whether it's weather conditions or the fact that this is a familiar divisional opponent, I think that this game could go down to the wire, even though the Seahawks look like juggernauts this past weekend. But for Matthew Stafford and the Rams, hey, they are 1 game away from the Super Bowl. I'm putting them in at number 3 because I thought they would just put up a little bit more points against the Chicago Bears. And like I said, it just feels like they haven't been playing their best football. But hey, if they show up on Sunday and are able to knock off the Seahawks, ain't no one going to be talking about any of that. Number 2, you got the New England Patriots. The Patriots. Oh boy, that was a game. They were able to force 5 turnovers, even though force sounds like, I don't know how genuine that word is, because CJ Stroud gifted them a bunch of turnovers. 4 interceptions, you had a fumble from Woody Marks, and it was a sloppy game. And the concerning thing about the Patriots is a couple things. 1, they allowed 5 sacks once again on Drake May. That's now back-to-back weeks, and now they're going up against a really good pass rush in the Denver Broncos. But the other thing is they weren't really able to take advantage of all those turnovers, not getting a whole lot of points off of them. However, there was one man that was able to take advantage of that Texans defense, as they had absolutely no answer for Kayshon Boutte.
God, you are killing me with that booty.
Just what a ridiculous catch. But let's talk about the Patriots. And I'm going to be honest with you, I originally had them at number 3 and the Rams at number 2 because I was giving the Rams a lot of credit for going on the road and winning. But I think the Patriots were going up against a higher quality opponent, even though CJ Stroud, like I mentioned, could not stop turning the ball over. They were going up against a Super Bowl caliber defense, and things were, again, pretty stagnant for a while. Even though the Patriots were forcing a bunch of turnovers, that Texans defense had an answer for just about everything except the booty.
Booty wide open.
Because you look at Drake May, and I mentioned the sack numbers, but he was also turning the ball over, and this is something that happened in the Chargers game as well. And so that is a little bit of a concern going forward. I know that there's been plenty of outside folks who are like, oh, the Patriots haven't had a real schedule and all this stuff, but they've been able to go up against some of the best defenses in the NFL and still come out victorious. So I think they deserve a ton of credit for that. On top of that, Christian Gonzalez, he was back in this game. He played really damn well, and they just made that Texans offense life absolutely miserable. Because even though the Texans haven't had a good run game all season, they were able to run it really well against the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was none of that in this game against New England. And on top of that, I think they have the easier matchup than the Rams going up against the Broncos. It definitely is not going to be a walk in the park with that Broncos defense, especially that pass rush. So I am worried about Drake May taking a bunch of sacks and potentially turning the ball over, but that defense gets to go up against a backup quarterback. So I think that makes a difference here. So because of that, the Patriots, they're coming in at number 2. They are 1 win away from returning to the Super Bowl, and somehow the evil empire has returned. And then finally, number 1, no shock here, you got the Seattle Seahawks. And listen, if you didn't tune into the game on Saturday, this is pretty much how the 49ers Seahawks game went.
They get the fight clock is brought to you by Modelo.
It was literally over after the opening kickoff. Good God. This was a game that the Seahawks dominated. For the second time in less than a month, they took on the 49ers. For the second time in less than a month, they were able to hold the 49ers to not even scoring a freaking touchdown, and they just dominated this football game. While they only won 13-3 the last time, this one, yeah, they dropped 41 points on that 49ers defense. They had absolutely no answer for Seattle. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, let's take a look at that Seattle defense. Playing phenomenal football. They were the number 1 defense heading into the playoffs in terms of points allowed, and you saw that on Saturday. I mean, hell, the 49ers only got 2 freaking field goals. Their secondary is great, their pass rush is good, and CMC couldn't do anything on Saturday. It was basically all Brock Purdy, and yeah, like I said, they didn't even score a touchdown. Then we take a look at the special teams. Shaheed has that opening touchdown on the kickoff, and he's just been dynamite for the Seahawks. Of course, in special teams, running the ball back, I think that's his 3rd touchdown scored with Seattle. And you want to talk about really big, impactful midseason trades. Him and Jacoby Myers to the Jaguars, they have to be the top 2 from this season because the Sauce Gardner one, that didn't really work out. So the Seahawks special teams is also playing well. And the offense, listen, Sam Darnold didn't make too many mistakes, didn't turn the ball over, and he basically had to play the same kind of game that he played the last time against the 49ers. But here's what makes the Seahawks so damn scary. We have to go back over a month, back to week 15, that the Seahawks have not had at least 100 yards on the ground. When they went up against the Colts, and that was an ugly game, they had 50 rushing yards. That was December 14th. Since then, week 16, 171 rushing yards. That was against the Rams. Week 17, they had 163 rushing yards, and that was against the Panthers. Week 18 against the 49ers, they had 180 on the ground. And this past weekend, they had 175 rushing yards. And that was without Zach Charbonnet, who unfortunately tore his ACL. And so he's going to miss an extended amount of time. But Kenneth Walker was able to get 3 freaking touchdowns. And so that's what makes the Seattle Seahawks so damn scary right now. It feels like they are playing their best football, and it's at the perfect time. They now get to host the NFC Championship game, which is the first time they've been back since, well, you know what game.
Away.
Seattle's going to the Super Bowl.
And while they were able to finish 11th in rushing yards before the season ended, if you were a Seattle fan and you watched a bunch of their games, you would say that their run game was really inconsistent throughout the year. But for the past month, it has been electric. So yeah, the Seattle Seahawks, I know they were beaten up on an injured divisional opponent who didn't have George Kittle. Their defense is not so great. But hey, man, it's the playoffs, and the Seattle Seahawks, they came in and absolutely annihilated their opponent. So yeah, they're number 1 in the power rankings, and if they continue to play like this, they're going to win the freaking Super Bowl. And so just to recap here, at number 1, you got the Seahawks, 2 Patriots, 3 Rams, and 4 Broncos. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you think should either be higher or lower on this list? Yeah, thank you so much, folks, for tuning into another season of Power Rankings. It's always a lot of fun to do these. A huge shout out to Johnny Barks, who edits these with all the great memes. He does fantastic work. So, yeah. I just appreciate the hell out of you. So thank you so much for another great season. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com. And a big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.